Hello and Assalamualaikum. Welcome again to BIO4YOU. Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about monohybrid cross, okay, in genetic inheritance for chapter 4. Let's have a look. Okay, monohybrid cross, what does it mean? Mono means one, satu. So, kita hanya tengok satu karakteristik saja dalam cross ini. Okay, only one characteristics is observed. Okay, for example, the flower color. It involves crossing between two individuals of true breeding. Okay, so now we're going to use the term true breeding with different phenotypes. So what is meant by true breeding? True breeding means homozygous is either homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. Homozygous means sama, mana sama ada P besar dengan genotype P besar atau P kecil. So itu adalah that is true breeding. Okay, Mendels experiment biasanya akan buat in 3 step. Okay, number 1, first they need to produce the P generation, i.e. the true breeding. Okay, P for the parental generation, and then produce F1 generation, not the F1 Formula 1 car race. Okay, F1 is first filial, iaitu filial pertama, generasi pertama, and F2 generation, filial 2. Mendel studied traits in 3 generations of pea plants. Okay, the term true breed or pure breed, it represents the organisms that are homozygous for the trait under consideration, under the study. Okay, when they are self-fertilized, maknanya dikacukkan sesama mereka sendiri, they will produce offspring that has the same phenotype as the parent. Generation after generation. So maknanya macam ni kita tahu dia adalah true breed ataupun pure breed. Bila kita kacukkan sesama dia, okay, after generation demi generation, dia hanya akan hasilkan exactly sama macam parents dia. Okay, so maknanya kita tahu dia adalah homozygous for the trait. Consider only one specific character, for example, the flower color. The pure breed for white color must have the genotype P kecil, P kecil. Okay, step 1, producing the P generation, i.e. the parental generation for true breeding plants. First, Mendel will select plants with 2 varieties, i.e. 2 different traits, main 2 ciri yang berbeza, i.e. for example, the purple flower and the white flower plant. These plants were allowed to self-pollinate for several generations. When we say self-pollinate, maksud dia kita pollinatekan pollen daripada bunga yang sama, daripada anther yang sama pergi ke stigma of the same flower. Okay, so that is what you meant by self-pollinate. And then the seeds collected from the purple flower plants is planted. So biji-biji ini ditanam. Okay, their offspring always produce purple flower plants, and whereas for the white flower plants will always produce the white plants. Logik lah, sebab dah memang dia pure breed pun. These 2 varieties of true breeding plants is known as parental or P generation. Okay, step 2, producing the F1 generation. And then Mendel kemudian dia akan remove the stamens. Stamens ni yang bahagian yang the male part of the plant. Okay, from the purple flower plant. Dia buang stamens tu, dia buang yang bahagian menghasilkan pollen tu tadi. And dia ambil pollen from the white flower, is transferred to the stigma. Stigma ni is the female part of the plant, okay, of the flower, and this is what we do cross fertilize. Why we need to remove the stamen? Kenapa nak kena buang bahagian male part ni? Supaya pollen daripada male part ni tidak accidentally fall on the stigma of the purple flower, of the same flower. So kita remove dia punya male part siap-siap, kita ambil pollen daripada bunga putih, then dia transfer on the stigma of the purple flowered plant. Okay, so dia transfer senangnya, dia guna brush ni je. Okay, as the result, all offsprings are purple flower. So daripada sini kita tahu bila kita kacukkan white and purple, semua anaknya purple, hence we can conclude and know purple is the dominant trait. Maksudnya bila kita campurkan purple and white, tetap akan hasilkan purple juga. Okay, offspring is first filial ataupun F1 generation. Okay, so then the F1 generation are self self-fertilized. What is meant by self-fertilized? Dikacukkan sesama sendiri. Maknanya sesama adik-beradik dia. Sesama generation F1 dengan F1 tu tadi. Okay. The seeds obtained from F1 generation is planted, ditanam. Produce a second filial or F2 generation. The results are you will produce 929 offspring, maknanya ada 929 biji benih dan ditanam semuanya. It will give 705 purple plants and 224 white flower plants. So then we're going to divide this by ratio. Kita cari ratio ni, kita cari dia punya nisbah dia. The phenotypic ratio, okay, 705 nombor besar divide by the small number, then you have 3.15. Of course lah, 224 divided by 224, you get 1. So nombor dia adalah 3.15 kepada 1. If we round this up to the closest round number, so we have 3 to 1 ratio. Maknanya the phenotype ratio is 3 purple, 1 white. Dia of course lah, in natural setting, dia tidak akan exactly have 3 to 1. Dia akan mendekati ataupun menghampiri ratio ini. Okay, so that's why Mendel comes to his first law, iaitu, okay, this slide is very important, which is Mendel's first law. It tells you about law of segregation. Segregation ni means pisah. Apa yang dipisahkan tu? Kita tengok. Each characteristic, setiap karakteristik is controlled by two factors of alleles, which separated, segregated, and pass into different gametes. So now kita tahu, bila kita kata manusia ataupun plants tu, bila kita nak hasilkan gamet, dia akan hasilkan dua gamet yang berbeza. Okay, maknanya one will carry one allele, the other one will carry the other allele. Maknanya one will carry one alternative, the other gamete will carry the other alternative. Gametes receive only one allele from each pair. Okay, to look this in more detail and closely, we look on to the next slide. Okay, so from this slide, we can see that the individual genotype ni asal dia P besar P kecil and then undergoes replication, okay, during S phase of interphase. So we have here P besar P kecil P kecil. So law of segregation maknanya bila nak during meiosis 1 dia akan separate. So akan ada let's say like this is a male part. So this is a production of sperm in male. So let's say each of this circle represent one sperm. So this sperm will receive the genotype for purple color. Okay, so this sperm also will receive the gene for purple color. This one receive white and this one receive white. Nampak? Segregate. Maknanya dia akan terpisah. Law of segregation. Okay, dominant allele for purple color. This is how and P, small letter P, recessive allele for white flower. So this is the genetic diagram, what we call genetic diagram, to show the crossing between the two plants. And actually during exam, this is how you should write your answer for when you are required to draw a genetic diagram. Okay, so you will start with the marks will be allocated lines by lines. Okay, means that if you are only write the genotype for each of the plant without this label here, you will end up 0 at the end. So if you screwed up, you did not write all of this label here, so even though you have all the details correct, your marks might be 0 for this part. Okay, so do be careful. Write in full, line by line. So you start with here, P. P stands for, not P for the, P actually, P generation stands for parental generation. Okay, if you just put a symbol P is still acceptable. So what is the genotype for the parents? So you have P besar for purple color, crossed with P kecil of white flower. So what is G here? G means gametes, possible gamete dia, possible sperm dia. Kalau male, sperm lah. If female is ovum. So the type of sperm can be produced by this purple flower is only the sperm carrying the P besar only. Why? Because all of the alleles are the same, P besar. So sama je lah. So same goes with this one. It can only carry P kecil ni sahaja. Okay, so when you cross them, you have the F1 generation, a heterozygous, P besar, P kecil. but still phenotypically apa yang kita nampak dia berwarna purple, tetapi genotype-nya ataupun genetiknya heterozygous, bercampur. Okay, so F1 genotype ratio all P besar P kecil, semua ni ratio dia. Okay, F1 phenotype ratio all are purple flower. So you need to write the genotype ratio, also you need to write the phenotype ratio. Next, okay, the continuation. Tadi tu baru sampai F1 saja kan. We want to produce until F2 generation. Okay, mana when Mendels does its study, it always study until second generation. So what we will do here is that we're going to cross F1 generation with F1 generation, maknanya sesama adik-beradik dia lah. Yang sama F1 dan F1 tu kita cross pollinatekan dia. So we have the purple color cross with purple it's a typo here, it's actually also a purple color but with a heterozygous. Both are heterozygous. Pardon for this typo, it should be purple color. So the gamete, what is the possible gamete for this plant? Okay, maknanya sperm dia untuk hasilkan pollen tu, one of the sperm possibly carrying the P besar, this gene, this genotype, okay, from this genotype, and this sperm is carrying P kecil. Whereas this ovum carrying P besar, the symbol represents the genetic for purple flower, and this ovum is carrying genes or genetic for white flower. So let us see how we do this crossing. Okay, so basically these all of these lines and arrows here is showing possibilities of fertilization, kebarangkalian fertilization. So the punya story sounds like this. What if this sperm fertilized with this ovum? So that's why you have this line here goes here and this line goes here. There you go. You have the offspring, anak dia, P besar, P besar. Okay. Next, what is the next possible could happen? This sperm carrying P besar fertilized with ovum carrying gene for P kecil, i.e. for white plant. Sorry, white flower. So that's why you have this line here and this line here gives you the heterozygous P besar P kecil. But phenotypically, what we can observe still adalah purple flower. So then we've done with this sperm. So then we try to calculate for this next type of sperm pula. Sperm yang bawa P kecil ni pula. So what if this this sperm carrying small p, small letter P is fertilized, maknanya dia fertilized lah, dia bersenyawa dengan ovum yang ini pula yang bawa P besar. So you have here similar with this one, P besar, P kecil. We always write the dominant characteristics first, P besar. And phenotypically, apa yang kita nampak still adalah purple color. And finally, what if this sperm here carrying P kecil fertilized with ovum with P kecil juga as well. So you have here P kecil where the flower of the plants is white in color. Okay, so again, when you are required to draw until second generation, make sure you draw and label this label as well. F1 cross F1, G, and then F2. And for the F2 genotype ratio is 1 to 1. Maksudnya the genotype 1 with P besar, 2 with P heterozygous, and 1 with homozygous recessive. So this is the typical ratio for F2 generation, 1 to 1 in a monohybrid cross. And the phenotype ratio pula is 3 to 1. Why 3 to 1? Because we have 3 purples and only 1 white. So this diagram is a simplified diagram. It's actually the same or similar with the diagram that we have discussed earlier, but just that in this diagram they've combined it in one diagram. So we have here the parental generation and then the gamete, and we have the F1 generation crossed with the label with self-cross, and crossed with the same generation of plants. And then we have the gametes, okay, being laid out again. And then we have the F2 generation, similar like before, and you will have the similar result. Okay, in on the other hand, we also can use a Parnet Square, okay, to do the possible crossing between the gametes. Okay, so um, actually this is similar with the lines that we've drawn earlier, like this line and that line joined together, this line and that line joined together. It's just that this one we are using a table. It's being called as a Parnet Square after a scientist Parnet. Okay, so what if P besar meets fertilized with P besar, then you have the P besar over here. What if the female gamete with P kecil, okay, fertilized with P besar of the sperm here, then you have this possibility, then you have this possibility for this one and that one, and you have this possibility for this one and this one. Okay, so it will still gives you the same ratio, it will still gives you the same phenotype ratio and also genotype ratio. Okay, now let us look on this one. This is the result of Mendel's experiment himself for the 7 characteristics that he studied. Okay, so he studied flower color, okay, purple and white. So after after he did the monohybrid cross, when he ends up with F2 generation, so we can see the dominant and recessive trait, okay, and then when this is the result, and when we lay out the ratio 3.15 to 1, all of the numbers are close to 3 to 1 ratio. Okay, we have 3.01, we have 2.96, okay, still close and closing to 3 to 1 ratio. Okay, so then now we look at monohybrid F1 test cross. Okay, what is test cross? What do we want to test? Okay, so here is the mini problem or simple problem. If it is a recessive trait, for example, with a white flower, if I see the plant with white flower, straight away I know the plant is having a homozygous recessive. Sebabnya untuk pokok warna putih tu, possibility genotype dia mesti P kecil sahaja yang akan jadikan dia berwarna putih. Tapi untuk pokok bunga yang warna purple, it can be either salah satu genotypenya P besar, homozygous dominant, or it's a heterozygous P besar, P kecil. So this is the problem here. So how do you want to know? We need to run a test cross. Kita kena test dia. Okay. So how do we do this test cross? We always do a test cross by crossing with homozygous recessive. That's why we have here the dominant phenotype, which is the purple flower, sama ada P besar atau P besar P kecil. Kita akan crosskan dengan homozygous recessive. So let us look what will happen here. So we have the unknown, actually, the purple color and purple color over here. So let's say the purple color, we think it is a P besar, then we cross it with the homozygous plant with P kecil. So for P besar, the possible gamete sperm dia yang bawa hanyalah P besar sajalah. For this one, of course, only P kecil saja sebab tak ada possible gamete lain lagi pun. So means here, all of the offspring ni maksud dia anak dia, semuanya adalah purple flower plant. So semuanya adalah P besar, P kecil. But what if the plant, the purple plant is a heterozygous? Okay, so kalau heterozygous tu maksudnya genotype dia, so I'm using the term genotype. Okay, genotype dia P besar, P kecil. So the gamete, the possible for the gamete, maknanya sperm dia boleh bawa sama ada satu sperm boleh bawa P besar, satu lagi jenis sperm boleh bawa P kecil. So then when you cross with the homozygous recessive, which only carrying this P kecil genotype, allele, so you cross, you akan dapat dekat sini purple and the other one is white. So 50% purple, 50% white, half. So if after the result from the test cross, if the plant gives you from the generation gives you half purple and half white, so we know that the unknown parents earlier is a heterozygous. If all of the offspring, semua anaknya adalah purple, kita tahu yang purple tadi itu adalah homozygous dominant. So that is the function of a test cross. Okay, so this is a monohybrid F1 test cross, basically showing what I've told you earlier. And so the genotype ratio is always 1 to 1, maknanya satu P besar P kecil and satu lagi P kecil. for the heterozygous parents, and the F2 phenotype ratio is 1 to 1, i.e. 1 purple and 1 white. Ini kalau parent dia adalah heterozygous. If the parent is homozygous, the answer for here is all purple, mana 100% purple. Okay, this is a diagram of a mouse. Okay, so we have a white mouse which is having the homo recessive, so for the test cross. And we have a black mouse over here. So for the black mouse, we don't know whether it is a homozygous dominant A besar, or it is a or was it a heterozygous A besar A kecil, because A besar A kecil also have a black fur juga, warna dia apa. Okay, so kalau kita crosskan, let's say this mouse here is having heterozygous A besar A kecil. So this will be the result. Half of it will be black and half of the offspring, anak dia adalah white. On the other hand, if the parent, if this one is a homozygous dominant, maksudnya A besar, anak dia semua berwarna hitam. So mana tikus hitam yang kita tak tahu asal tadi sama ada homodominant or heterozygous, kita tahu dia adalah, kalau anak semuanya hitam, dia adalah homozygous dominant. Kalau anak dia campur-campur hitam dan putih, so kita tahu dia adalah heterozygous. So this is a summary for monohybrid crossing. Okay, for the F1 self-cross, the genotype ratio is 1 to 1. The phenotype ratio is 3 to 1. For F1 test cross, okay, the genotype ratio mesti 1 to 1 and the phenotype ratio is also 1 to 1. Ini kalau heterozygous. Okay, that will be all for this video, for this section. Okay, please like, subscribe and share. Alright, so until the next video. Thank you.